Welcome in to the FF Warriors podcast. I am your host, Kyle Sweat. Week 6 is nearly in the books. I want to go ahead and go over week 6 and really just my thoughts of the season so far. Let's go over some trade rumors. Is there a big name player that may get traded soon? Let's go over some buy or sell. Review some injuries. Is there maybe a quarterback controversy brewing? All these things we're going to go over on today's episode. So stay tuned. And as always, if you like our content, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Without further ado, let's get into it. First, let's look at some injuries. So from week 6, the main injuries that took place, Marquise Brown had an ankle injury. X-rays came back negative. He's going to have an MRI soon. It's an ankle injury looking like 4 to 6 weeks possibly as a timeline. Kenny Pickett did leave the game with a concussion, so he is in concussion protocol, maybe out for next week's game, something to monitor. Cam Brate for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers left with a neck injury. He was carted off the field. It was an emotional scene on the field. Everybody was standing in attention, so we hope that he's healthy going forward and he recovers well. Randall Cobb was also carted off with an ankle injury, another emotional moment there. Hopefully he comes back healthy. Carson Wentz in the Thursday night football game has a fractured ring finger. Looks like he may be out for a few weeks as well. Deion Jackson filled in for Jonathan Taylor this past week, but he ended up picking up a quad injury. Came back into the game, but ended up leaving with that quad injury. So those would be the main injuries to look out for and keep monitoring throughout the week and see, how they may progress for week 7 going forward. So let's move on. Now I want to look at some things, some takeaways, not only from this past week, but just kind of like my thoughts of what's take place with the season so far and some of the teams. So first, the Atlanta Falcons have been surprisingly competitive. At the beginning of the season, before the game started, I really thought that the Falcons may have been the worst team in the league, just talent and scheme and coaching, but definitely have surprised so far. They have a 77.9 overall grade per PFF, which ranks 8th in the league. Their offensive line ranks 2nd in run block, also per PFS. Defense ranks 21st per PFF. And the offense rates out well, even though Kyle Pitts and Drake London have struggled. They basically have barely done anything all year, except Drake London had 1 or 2 good games. This past week, both of them combined for 6 catches on 7 receptions, 59 total yards, and 1 touchdown. So even though their 2 best offensive weapons have not performed well, they're still finding a way to win games. It's very impressive. I know Arthur Smith, their head coach, has gotten a lot of feedback as far as his utilization of these star players, but whatever he's doing seems to be working. Definitely been a surprise so far. 49ers passing attack bounces back in week 6. George Kittle, who has underwhelmed so far, finally had a bounce back game. 8 receptions on 10 targets for 83 yards. That's definitely more of like the George Kittle that we're used to, and I think that he's going to continue to gain more utilization in the offense as he comes back from the injury and just gets back into the flow of things. Also, Brandon Ayuk had a very good game, 8 receptions on 11 targets for 83 yards as well. Also caught 2 touchdowns. Is one of the top 3 scoring wide receivers of week 6 so far. I'm recording this before the Monday night game and the Sunday night game. And game script may have had something to do with it as they were trailing the Falcons throughout the game. They only had 11 rushing attempts this game. Definitely not typical 49ers strategy there. So I'm sure this isn't going to be exactly what it would look like every week because primarily, they are a running team and that's what they want to establish. But good to see them producing, bouncing back because it wasn't looking good throughout for the first 5 weeks. So maybe something, sign of things coming forward. Romandray Stevenson is a workhorse stud for New England. Ever since Damian Harris came out injured, he's averaged over 25 points per game in these past 2 weeks, getting 24 or more touches each game, and the next 5 matchups are against poor rushing defense. He has the Jets twice, Chicago, Indianapolis, and Minnesota. Even when Damian Harris comes back, he will be the lead back. He has the 3 down skill set, and I think he's going to be an RB1 or a high-end RB2 for rest of season. Speaking of studs, Breece Hall, rookie running back for the New York Jets, is an RB1 moving forward. He has 20 or more touches in the last 3 weeks, averaging 24 points per game. Absolute stud. He's getting it done on the ground. He's getting it done through the air, getting the targets. That's the guy you want there in New York. Definitely took over that backfield. Michael Carter's only gotten, I think it was 7 touches this past week. So there's definitely a big disparity in the touches in the backfield there. Green Bay Packers have struggled heavily, coming off back-to-back losses to the New York teams. They have the 24th ranked defense per PFF, and Aaron Rodgers has struggled heavily in comparison to last year. His best performance is barely 20 points in this 22 season, definitely missing Devontae Adams. It's very apparent that he does not have the chemistry with his weapons. Allen Lazard is the number 1 wide receiver there. He has earned some targets, made some plays, but their offense overall has struggled. They still have a decent grade per PFF overall, but it's clear that they are not the same team from last year, and Aaron Rodgers is not playing at an MVP level. Michael Pittman is back to wide receiver 1 status after week 6. He had 13 receptions on 16 targets, 134 yards. Monster performance, good for 27.5% target share. So he is going to be that wide receiver 1. You could put him in your lineup and forget about him except for his bye week. He may not have this kind of performance every week, but this is definitely in his range of outcomes. I think he will have a decent floor. Matt Ryan did look better this past week. I think things are looking up as far as the passing game in Indianapolis. Also got Alec Pierce getting in there. Mike Gesicki, he had a good game week 6. 6 receptions on 7 targets, 69 yards, 2 touchdowns, but I would not trust him moving forward. Tua is coming back in week 7 from that concussion, and he does not target Gesicki. His role has definitely changed, kind of going more into a blocking scheme with Mike McDaniels coming over from Kyle Shanahan's system there in 49ers. They are a run-first team, and they use their tight ends for blocking. I don't think Gesicki is one that you can really trust, but was good to see him get some production there. But again, I'm not trusting that going forward. If you're desperate, you could try and put him in your lineup, but just be prepared that he is not going to have a very good outing every week. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase return to form, connecting on 7 receptions off 10 targets. He had 132 yards and 2 touchdowns. Burrow himself threw for 300 yards, 4 touchdowns total. He got 1 on the ground. Burrow back in quarterback 1 territory moving forward, and Jamar Chase just doing Jamar Chase things. And that's the connection that we expected coming into the season. So definitely nice to see that kind of get back on track. I think the Bengals offense overall might be pointing in the right direction moving forward, kind of looking more of like what we expected. J.K. Dobbins, what happened? He has underperformed in 3 out of 4 games. I know he's coming off an injury. He's underperformed. Week 6, only 7 touches compared to Kenyon Drake's 12 touches. Now, there was reported that he had some knee stiffness concerns. Still getting over the injury. The workload is looking like he's maybe an RB3 moving forward until, we can see him get more acclimated and returning from his injury and just kind of putting those performances that we expect from Baltimore Ravens running back, especially one as talented as J.K. Dobbins. So that's more of like a wait and see. I would kind of keep him out of the lineup for now. Maybe you could start him, but very underwhelming. So that's something to keep a monitor on. Maybe there's something more to that. Maybe Kenyon Drake takes away some of his touches on a permanent basis. Maybe more of a split backfield. Now, also, Gus Edwards is coming back from his injury as well. I believe he will be playing in week 7. So this Ravens backfield is definitely a murky one to monitor. Even the Ravens in general are just not running it like, the Ravens that we know. So definitely keep an eye on the J.K. Dobbins and his performance moving forward. Again, I don't recommend starting him. I would put him on your bench. Don't drop him, but put him on your bench and see what happens there. The New York Football Giants. They continue to impress, improving to 5-1 while all of their top receivers have been hurt or inefficient. Their defense ranks 27th per PFF. Offense ranks 22nd. I don't know how they continue to win. And these aren't cupcake teams that they're beating either. They beat the Giants this past week. They beat the Packers, and this past week they beat the Ravens 24-20. Another surprise win there. Nobody would have expected the New York Giants would be looking this good. Brian Daboll has to be the coach of the year so far. Saquon Barkley is playing out of his mind. He is their MVP. I doubt, he would be the league's MVP, but I do think he has a good chance to win Comeback Player of the Year. Moving on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, this is not the same team as the past 2 years. Offensive line and defense have struggled the past couple weeks and appear to have a lack of effort, making mental mistakes. This past week against the Steelers, definitely a surprise loss. Watching the game, there was many times where they were able to get the Steelers into a 3rd and long, and they just couldn't get off the field. The completion or the conversion rate for the Steelers on 3rd and long was just astounding. So that is not the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense that we're used to, and not what they played like the first couple weeks. Coach Bowles came out after the game, called out some players for living off of the Super Bowl win and just trying to refocus the team. Now, I do expect him to come out with a little bit more energy after these past 2 weeks and these losses. Now, Tom Brady has struggled as well. He's only thrown 8 touchdowns all year. 8 touchdowns. He's on pace for 22 touchdowns this year, which is crazy. Last year, this man led the league in yards and touchdowns. I know that the Buccaneers have had some receivers that have been injured throughout the year, but there's really no excuse for this. There's a lot going on there. Now, I'm not worried about them moving forward. I do think that they're going to get focused. They're going to get things in check, but I'm not sure if they're the class of the NFC anymore. The Eagles continue to dominate 6-0, so they're going to have some great competition on their way to try to make it to the Super Bowl. Now, Kenneth Walker looks like a stud. He has a great upside and opportunity for the rest of the season. He had 23 touches for 110 yards and a touchdown in his first career NFL start. And he's just going to continue to dominate that backfield. And I believe he's a really good runner. I did watch some film of him in the offseason before the draft. And I believe that he may be the best running back, just pure runner in this draft. We will see. I know Breece Hall has been, as we talked about, has been playing very well himself, fellow rookie from the class. But Kenneth Walker, definitely looking like a stud. He's going to have great opportunity there. If you have him and you were able to get him on your bench, and now's your chance to use him, then I know you're feeling happy. Now, if you are able to trade for him, then I would definitely do it. He's going to continue to get the workload, and he's going to be a stud. Now, Kansas City versus Buffalo. This is the matchup that everybody was waiting for since last year. This is a Super Bowl we wish we could see. These two teams may be the next great rivalry of this league, kind of like a Manning and Brady rivalry between Mahomes and Josh Allen. And it's just the next generation of greatness moving forward. Both teams are very evenly matched. Every time they play, they're going back and forth. They had multiple lead changes. Buffalo wins yesterday, averaging 5-point difference in last 2 meetings. And it's just crazy when they play. Very entertaining. Great games. I wish that they could play in the Super Bowl, but we should definitely expect to see them in the conference championship. Allen Robinson, he scored a touchdown in Week 6, finally showing some signs of life, but he's still been very inefficient with his opportunities. I would not trust him moving forward. I think that he belongs on the waiver wire. You have Van Jefferson coming back from injury soon. Even Ben Skoranek has been outperforming him. And then there's still the possibility that Odell Beckham gets signed back at some point later, maybe in November, and he'll have further target competition. He's not tops more than 6 targets in a game. Minus his 2 touchdowns, he's only averaging 5.6 fantasy points per game. With his touchdowns included, still only 7.6 fantasy points per game. It's very big disappointment for Allen Robinson. He was somebody that I was high on myself coming into the season, and it's just crazy to see the kind of performances that he's been putting out there. So I don't know if it's just usage or if he may be washed. But he is also on a week 7 bye. I would just cut your losses with Allen Robinson because I think that if you continue to use him in your lineups, you're only going to be setting yourself up for disappointment. Now, moving on, there are some trade rumors that have been going around here recently. Some big names. It was particularly Christian McCaffrey. Reportedly, they are listening to offers for a trade. Now that they also have reported that they're wanting multiple first-round picks in the deal. That's going to be hard to accomplish. I don't see that happening. For Christian McCaffrey's sake, I hope he gets traded because Carolina Panthers are just kind of a dumpster fire right now. He would probably benefit from moving on to a contender. I could see him maybe going to the Buffalo Bills or the Los Angeles Rams, maybe even Miami. I think all 3 of those teams would be able to use him. They are contenders for the playoffs and possibly the Super Bowl. And if they could pull it off, then I know Christian McCaffrey would be a big bonus to their team. Panthers also looking to trade Robbie Anderson. He had an altercation with coaches on the sideline this past game in week 6, and they're going to try to move him. I'm not sure what his trade market might look like, or if maybe they'll just end up having to release him, but that's something to keep a monitor on as well. Now, the Los Angeles Rams, surprisingly, Cam Akers was deemed inactive for week 6, supposedly personal reasons. There was an update later on that it was football reasons, and apparently that may have been true because now they're looking to trade him to another team. I'm not really sure what market he may have either. I can't really look at any team in the league that's going to trade for Cam Akers and he's going to immediately be the starter for their team. So he may be just a rotational piece, which I'm not sure if that's the reason why he's maybe unhappy with his role with the Rams. I don't really see that getting any better on another team. Definitely something to monitor. Now, there may be a quarterback controversy brewing in New England. Bailey Zappi, the rookie quarterback, filling in for Mac Jones since week 4. He has 2 starts, and New England is 2-0 with him. The difference between a Mac Jones-led offense and a Bailey Zappi offense has been crazy. Now, it's a very small sample size, but so far, with Bailey Zappi as the starter, the offense or the team in general, they're averaging 33.5 points per game. It's a crazy amount. And compared to Mac Jones, their team has averaged only 16.7 points per game. That's a big difference between their team's output. The offense looks better. Furthermore, Bailey Zappi has a 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio compared to Mac Jones, who has a 2-to-5 touchdown to interception ratio. Now, Mac Jones is their first round pick from just a couple of years ago, so they do have some investment in him. But if I know anything from watching Bill Belichick and his teams in the past, they're going to put out who gives them the best chance to win. Right now, that might be Bailey Zappi. So this is going to be an interesting situation to watch moving forward from when Mac Jones comes back from his injury. Now, personally, from what I've seen so far, I think Bailey Zappi may deserve some further opportunity to prove himself in this offense. We have seen Mac Jones since last year and so far this year before he got hurt. And it's nothing spectacular. As soon as Bailey Zappi came in, their offense just woke up. The running game has been efficient and strong with Romandray Stevenson. Regardless of what wide receiver they have out there, they have somebody that's making plays. Tyquan Thornton just came back from injury, gives them a speed element to the offense. He actually performed pretty well in week 6. And, well, we'll see what happens with that. That's going to be a very interesting situation to watch for sure. So moving on, let's look at some buy or sell. I want to kind of look at some buy or sell options every week. Today I have 2 buy options. I have 2 sell options. I want to do them in alternating order. My first buy, Jonathan Taylor. I know if you would have even mentioned the possibility of trying to trade Jonathan Taylor week 1, that would have been just a crazy idea. But ever since then, Jonathan Taylor is at his lowest value. It will be, especially after the Deion Jackson performance this past week, that's bringing question about whether Deion Jackson should be the starter. Now, he definitely performed admirably, but Jonathan Taylor is still the workhorse back here. He's going to continue to be the starter and the workhorse. He's averaging 24 touches a game, and he's also been included in the passing game, averaging 4 touches in the passing game. I would go try to make a push for Jonathan Taylor while his value is still as it is, because once he gets back out there, he puts up a 30-point performance, nobody would ever want to trade him. So now's the time. Buy, buy, buy. Now, sell. I think we should sell Chase Claypool coming off of his performance from week 6. It's his best week of the season so far. He caught all of his 7 targets for 96 yards. He also had a touchdown. Now, Mitch Trubisky is coming in for Kenny Pickett for now. So I'm not sure if there may be further controversy with that between him and Kenny Pickett, but I don't believe that there's going to be consistent targets for Chase Claypool moving forward. I think that George Pickens, Deontay are going to be the more consistent options. If you could, I would say trade Chase Claypool, sell him to somebody, get a more consistent option. If you have to add maybe a draft pick or another lower end player, maybe go try to get like a Michael Pittman. Maybe somebody is not as high on him and thinks that his couple games that he has performed are not sustainable. But I would go maybe try to get somebody like that. Another buy option, T. Higgins. He's coming off 2 poor performances, one being a 0. Now, he did leave due to an injury that he was dealing with. It's been a lingering injury. He comes back in week 6. He does get a 27% target share. He only ends up with 10 points overall, a little over 10 points. Now, like I said earlier, this Bengals offense is getting their feet under them. From earlier in the season, they struggled, and they're starting to get back on track. T. Higgins has a very healthy target share. Right now is probably the lowest value that he'll be at. I would go try to make a trade for him. He's right up there with Jamar Chase in target share. Maybe not quite as explosive with the big plays, but he's going to be a very valuable wide receiver moving forward. My next option is going to be a sell of Juju Smith-Schuster. This past week he had 5 targets, caught all of them, 113 yards and a touchdown. Now, as we've seen with these Kansas City wide receivers, there's very inconsistent performances throughout. One week it might be Juju. The other week it might be Marquez Valdes-Scantling. The next week it might be just a Travis Kelce game, like the other week when he had 4 touchdowns. It's very inconsistent. I wouldn't trust any of the options in the passing game besides Travis Kelce. Not to mention, he did all that only on a 12.5% target share. He was very efficient with the targets, but definitely not sustainable. That's not a good target amount to have consistent weekly performances. I would try to sell him while you can. His value's only going to go down, I believe. He does still have some name value as well, as he is considered the clear wide receiver 1 to some people. I would go take advantage of that mindset. See if you can sell him. He's a headache that I wouldn't want on my team. I don't suggest you would have to deal with that. Again, like I've spoken in the past, consistency is kind of everything. You want to have some upside plays here and there, but want to have a basis of consistency on your team, and I don't think that's Juju. So yeah, definitely sell Juju while you can. I would definitely recommend that. That's the buy or sell. That's really it for week 6. We're gonna do an episode tomorrow of waiver wire episode, so stay tuned for that. As always, again, like, subscribe, share with your friends. If you have any questions you want me to answer on the podcast, you can email us at ffwarriorspodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and anywhere you are, we are. I appreciate your support. We're going to continue to build the podcast and improve, and want to build a community, possibly have a Patreon here in the future. So stay tuned. We're going to continue to improve. Until next episode, peace.